my first question is, what insights are we looking to really gain from bringing the two data sets together? And then let's focus on that to ultimately get to the point where we can identify how we can best execute it versus which platform. To me, it's, again, we have very limited knowledge. So, take this with a grain of salt.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. Consulting companies generated trillions of dollars by orchestrating the movement of data and crafting ETL codes. This was essential to safeguard the operational systems from the potential impact of analytical workloads on performance. Operational systems handled transactional heavy lifting, while analytical workloads focused on supply chain and decision science. Snowflake revolutionized this landscape by introducing technology that eliminated the need to copy data for analytical purposes. This not only resulted in instant cost savings, but also empowered companies to explore real-time analytical workloads. Despite Snowflake being a top-tier technology, organizations sometimes employ it for unintended purposes, either perceiving it as unnecessarily expensive or not achieving the desired business outcomes. To understand Snowflake's place in the architecture and how it compares with other enterprise software technologies, one must delve into its positioning and evaluate its performance in relation to alternative solutions. In today's episode, we invited a panel of industry experts for a live discussion on LinkedIn to conduct an independent review of Snowflake's capabilities. We covered many grounds, including where Snowflake might be a fit in the enterprise architecture and where it might be overused. Finally, they analyze many data points to help understand the core strengths and weaknesses of Snowflake. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And if you are joining for the first time, this is part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We review one vendor or the solution. For today, we have another one of the hottest technologies, which is Snowflake. So we are doing a series of the hot technologies this year. So this is probably the second or hot technologies like Snowflake. Andy, can you believe this?
That's kind of like an oxymoron, isn't it?
I know. Hot technology like Snowflake. Andy's joke, never get old, right? Okay, so today we are reviewing Snowflake. Yeah, this is probably one of the hottest technology right now on Wall Street. They are doing really well. So obviously we are going to have a lot of fun discussing that. Before we do that, before we are going to start with everybody's intros, I am going to start with my quick intro. Sam Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. On that note, Dave, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Sure. Thanks, Sam. Hey, everybody. My name is Dave Chrysler, and I own a operations consulting business working with leaders looking to optimize their operations and drive profitable growth, and come to you with more than 25 years of various operational leadership roles, and excited to be here with you and Andy.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Dave. Andy, can I ask you to introduce yourself next?
Of course. Thank you so much, Sam. My name's Andy Pratico. I've been working with ERP software for manufacturers well before either one of these two good-looking fellas were born.
Yep.
I've got grandchildren that are older than them, I think. Anyways, I worked all over North America. I also have written a book on to evaluate and how to uncover the truth about ERP software before you buy. And I do a bunch of webinars and I try to help people. So thank you so much for having me, not helping me, having me.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Andy. So, what we are going to do is we are going to start with the regular briefing that we typically do for this solution, and then we'll be going over some of the slides as well. So, Andy, Dave, just for your reference, this particular technology, Snowflake, they are probably in the same bucket as Palantir. In fact, we mentioned Snowflake during Palantir session is because most people had misunderstanding about what Palantir really is. Now we are talking about Snowflake because this is going to be slightly more intuitive. The way it is positioned, hopefully companies are not misusing it. In my personal experiences, I have seen Snowflake being used very creatively as well. So we'll cover those use cases too, what I have personally seen. But obviously, the whole premise was very, very, very compelling. That's why this one is super powerful even as of today. So, number one, I guess the whole reason and the idea why Snowflake was so hot because their technology was very unique. So, Andy, just for your reference, obviously, this is going to be slightly more technology platform as opposed to just the ERP or the business software.
Functionality, yeah.
Exactly. And we are going to talk about where they sort of fit in the architecture because a lot of people don't necessarily understand, to be completely honest, okay? And we have seen scenarios where architecture is just all over the place. So the whole idea of a Snowflake, and in fact, I mean, what we should do is we should probably go back in time and Andy, I should probably brief you overall in terms of how the enterprise architecture was developed traditionally, okay? And I don't know if we have covered this in any of the sessions before or not. Typically, I would touch on this topic during SAP S4 HANA as well, because SAP HANA database had very similar premise. Relatable, I would not say very similar premise, but relatable, okay? So that requires understanding HANA as well as Snowflake requires understanding of how the OLAP is the term, Andy, okay, as well as OLTP. These two terms were very frequently used if anybody is from the database world, okay? So the whole idea of OLTP was transactional processing is the term, okay? So when I say transactional processing, that means anytime you are processing any sort of transactions, that is going to be anything that requires tight data integrity of databases. In fact, that was the foundation of databases, to be completely honest. The way databases were designed, a lot of people talk about SQL versus NoSQL, a lot of different things. These concepts are not new. These concepts were always there. They were not as commercialized because companies could not find the use cases, but now they are sort of becoming mainstream, okay? So OLTP, the whole idea of OLTP was to enforce that transactional integrity, to be able to process those transactions. So that is going to be something like ERP like application. ERP is known, and the reason why people hate ERP is because of that tightness of the data model. It requires a lot of cross-functional alignment, marriage of data. You are going to get exceptions that you don't care for. Obviously, you are going to be mad about it. Uh, but the whole idea is the tightness of the database, and the tightness is enforced by millions and millions of business rules at the database level. That's the term, database level, okay? So rules can be enforced at many different levels. The newer applications that you are going to see in the market, they typically bypass the whole database layers, and sometimes the systems might be easier to use compared to a system that is going to have the data integrity enforced at the database level. So ERP is probably the role model for the transactional integrity in general, because that is going to have the tightest database ever possible in any software out there. Now, the second category of software are probably going to be something like e-commerce. So the reason why ERP and e-commerce, both of them are going to use the transactional data integrity is because whenever you are going to have any sort of dollars involved, okay, you will require transactional integrity, because you need to reconcile your transactions down to the penny. Now, this problem does not exist. Let's say if you talk about social media applications or the newer applications that you are seeing in the market or analytical applications. Nobody cares if you missed one message. And let's say you post on LinkedIn and I like it, you don't see it. Who cares? You are going to be mad and then we are going to be okay, right? Uh, so that's the real difference between your OLTP versus OLAP databases. The whole premise of OLAP was speed. Okay, move fast. Okay, the only thing mattered for those databases is speed. They did not care for the transactional integrity. They had to sacrifice on the transactional integrity. That's why these two worlds in the database world were completely separate. These two were completely different technologies. Then what you had to do is just to do the OLTP workload. Traditionally speaking, these workloads were so higher that you could not do your reporting right away touching your operational systems. If you did that, then your operational performance is going to be impacted. Back in the days when the technologies were limited, at that time, you had hard time meeting your delivery expectations or delivering your products or services. So you could not worry about the analytics. So what companies did is they moved this data to a separate place called OLAP using a technology called ETL. Okay. So this was the architectural principle that was very prevalent in the enterprise architecture world. Now, the premise of Snowflake, what Snowflake did it, and by the way, because of these ETL technologies and the ETL workloads, consulting company made millions and millions of dollars because ERP was there, but they had to move this data to a data warehouse to get the insight and analytics and business decisions and data science and AI that you need to be able to do this, right? So consulting companies made trillions and trillions of dollars. Now, what Snowflake did is very smart. Okay, so what they did is they with Snowflake technology, you don't have to use any sort of ETL. You don't require ETL. So basically, what you can do is once you sort of use Snowflake as a database, then you don't have to move that data. You don't have to copy that data. You don't require ETL technology to be able to use this. So that was the fundamental premise of the Snowflake technology, which is very impressive. And that's why obviously Snowflake is going to be slightly more expensive in general. So this was one of the premise of the whole Snowflake architecture. So if you are going to use today Snowflake, then this is the major advantage that you are going to get from this. Now, based on this commentary, one of the things that you might be able to deduce is that Snowflake is most likely going to be used for the analytical workloads, because for that it is really designed. And this is where you are going to see a lot of similarity between your Snowflake and Palantir, because even Palantir, even though they might be claiming themselves to be replacement of an ERP, they are designed for that. They are designed for analytics, data science sort of workload, and that's where your Snowflake is going to be. So I am going to pause there. I know I spoke a lot, so if you guys have any sort of comments there, Jay, Wendy.
Well, I was going to say that surprisingly enough, I do know what OLAP means.
And I'm really interested right now to know what that is. Andy, please tell me.
But I'm going to let Dave talk. Go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just going to add there's, I mean, it was a great breakdown in terms of, how it kind of came to be and how companies really should be looking at, being able to leverage platforms like this from a, unlocking that data analytics piece for their business. Yeah, it's so interesting with all of the conversations that are happening from a marketing standpoint about AI and ML and all of these things. This is a piece of that infrastructure that has to be existing in order to be able to, to talk about some of those fun things that we talked about last week. So great breakdown, though, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah, excellent. Yes, actually. Thank you.
I should have some diagrams here, Andy, probably.
Yeah, and a laser pointer.
Exactly. We should do that. All right, guys. So I'm going to get into slides, and I'm going to touch on some more, benefits that were there using Snowflake technology even today. I mean, they are great benefits overall. So here, one of the things, I mean, this is also a public company, so these notes are coming from their financial statements, and typically we find far more truth inside financial statements than any other sources that we have. So here, one of the things that you're going to notice is they are saying we deliver the data cloud, a network where Snowflake customers, partners, developers, data providers, and data consumers can break down data silos and drive value from rapidly growing data sets in secure, governed, and compliant ways. So I think the biggest comparison here always is going to be your Palantir. The reason for that is because they are used in very similar setting. We could see some use cases there, so we are going to be comparing and contrasting with that. So one of the things that we noticed, and Dave, Andy, I don't know whether you guys remember this or not, that in that one of the things that we noticed is the whole privacy thing when you were sharing the data model. And when I say privacy, meaning GDPR level privacy, meaning that is going to be really at the individual level. When you talk about privacy, let's say you have, I don't know, maybe 2,000 different business partners, and when you are sharing data with them, that's a very small deal. Versus, let's say if you are doing this in the not-for-profit world, where you have to share data with every single citizen that might be living in a county or a state or a country, then it's a very different deal. So that's where the layers are. That is going to be far more effective for that kind of security. In this particular case, Snowflake also coined this idea where, let's say, if you are going to be sharing data in the secured workflow manner. So for example, let's say if you are going to be a hospitality organization, and the reason why hospitality is a good example is because, Dave, let's say you are probably McDonald's, right? Or I don't know if McDonald's is probably a good example. I'm actually missing the name that we spoke about, one of the chains that is from Michigan, food chain we were talking about in one of the sessions. And in that, one of the uniqueness in that business model was that was all franchise owned, meaning you are dealing with somebody else's business, but you have to share data for your supply chain planning. You need to plan the inventory, right? So that's where the collaboration between this is almost like a OEM centric arrangement, even in the case of retail, where you are sharing data models with your franchise owners so that they can plan their inventory, they can provide the customer experience that you are hoping to get from your brands. And these are situations where you are going to be sharing a lot of data. This is very, very, very similar even in the automotive world, where you have to share your data sets with the entire value chain, and they have to share with you. When you have these data sharing arrangements, and by the way, these are very, very, very confidential data sets. Let's say if you are in the aerospace world and you might have national security issues. So that's where, the trick is in terms of the data sharing. And that's why Snowflake matters more from the business to business collaboration perspective. This is another advantage that I want to touch on of Snowflake technology. But when you are going to get into those GDPR centric privacy issues where you have to share this data with millions and sometimes billions of people, then the workload expectations or the transactions are going to be at a very different level. So that's where sort of Palantir fits in. Okay, if you guys don't have any comments there, I'll keep moving here. Then they are talking about enabling customers to consolidate data into a single source of truth to drive meaningful business insights, build data application, and share data and data products. So I think, again, sometimes it might be confusing to read this statement, especially things such as single source of truth. Now, even single source of truth may have multiple versions of truth, I guess. Okay, everybody is talking about single source of truth. So when you look at single source of truth from the data perspective, then you are really looking at in the data world, in the OLAP world, from the analytics perspective, this is a very different source of truth than what you are going to require in your transactional applications. So key distinction there to note. Then you have business insights, build data applications. That is right. This is really used to build data applications. But this is where I guess the use case that I was talking about, Dave and Andy, is we have seen crazy scenarios where Snowflake is being used for the transactional applications as well. And sometimes, we have seen cases where they are literally building a WMS system or the ERP system on top of Snowflake because the Snowflake is so cool, right, guys? But that cool is not gonna, again, it's not gonna work for the use cases if it is not used for the right. So here they have some more comments. They are saying we provide our platforms through our customer centric, not consumer centric, consumption based business model. So that is their pricing. Their pricing is going to be very consumption based. Sometimes that could be very expensive and unpredictable to estimate. And this is the
consumption based. Is that basically synonymous with transactional based?
In this case, yes. So
Okay.
consumption based could have many different layers as well. And unless you have the development background to be completely honest, or maybe data background, okay, you don't want to mess with consumption because it could be very hard to. Okay, it sounds cool on a piece of paper, but it could really fire back to be completely. I would rather have per user pricing than consumption based pricing, but this is okay. When you are, let's say, testing, or if you kind of know the workload from the database perspective, it's not as bad. But consumption based pricing could be harder. Charging customers for the resources they use. Then they have some more comments here. Snowflake solves the decade old problems of data silos and data governance. Data governance, to some extent, data silos, that is always going to be there depending upon your architecture, I guess. But to some extent, I think they are solving that depending upon how you are going to read that statement. Then we have some more comments here. Can securely share data inside and outside of their organization. I think that is the key messaging. So number one is going to be without copying the data. Number two is going to be sharing the data models. And this is where their marketplace is very handy, because you are going to have data products that are listed on their marketplace, which are phenomenal. Because in the data world, in the SNOP world, in the FP&A world, any data warehouse centric technologies, you are going to require a lot of external data as well. And here, the external data is available in the subscription form right on the marketplace, and that's a jackpot for any data companies. Number one, they can sell. It's also a great benefit for companies that are consuming data. They don't have to develop these workflows to be able to consume those data. You are literally trying to consume that and trying to correlate that with the data model that you are going to have. So it makes everything so easy, and that's where their implementation obviously is going to be far faster, just because all of these benefits that they are able to provide. So here they are talking about our cloud native architecture consists of three independently scalable but logically integrated layers across compute, storage, and cloud services. And again, we are getting into real technology, and when you get into the real data workloads, things get very expensive, and that's where you need to really plan your IT infrastructure, or you are going to be paying a lot. So these are designed for very highly technical systems when you are going to have very complex workloads where you are pouring millions and millions of dollars just to build your data warehouse. And enterprise companies most certainly have a need. SMBs, depending upon what the use cases are going to be for data, how much value you are going to get, they might have use cases. Some more commentary here. We have an industry vertical focus, which allows us to go to market with tailored business solutions. For example, we have launched the telecom data cloud, financial services data cloud, the media data cloud, healthcare and life sciences data cloud, and retail data cloud. Guys, if you notice the overlap between these industries, these are the same industries that Salesforce is going after. These are the same industries that Workday is going after. Okay, so there is a lot of overlap there. By the way, there is very interesting layer here in terms of these industries as well as data cloud. Because right now, if you listen to Wall Street in terms of two technologies that are really hot, or maybe three. Okay, so Snowflake, Salesforce, Palantir, obviously all three are equally hot. Salesforce is actually trying to develop data cloud as well. That's why they are so hot. They are trying to position very similar offering as this. So all three are competing for the same revenue, to be completely honest. Salesforce is competing for the same revenue. Palantir is competing for the same revenue. And then Snowflake is trying to compete for the same revenue as well. So it's very interesting, and they are targeting very similar industries, because in these industries, you are going to have real application of data as well as decision science. Okay, you might not have as much application of data in, let's say, manufacturing, etc., because you are going to find a lot of pre-baked platforms. So for example, let's say if you are in manufacturing, retail, and here they are saying retail because if you are going to be slightly more hospitality centric organizations, then it's a very different application use case. In that, Snowflake might make sense. But let's say if you are going to be very traditional retail organization, or let's say, for example, manufacturing organization, okay, you are going to get a lot of pre-baked platforms, SNOP platforms that are going to be flavored for your industry. In that case, it might not make sense to use a Snowflake, and that's why they are not going after those industries. Okay, so again, the replacement from the technology perspective is going to be those. In these industries, you are going to have very unique requirement. You are going to be needing to overlay a lot of industry data sets for which you are not going to find another platform to be complete. So in terms of decision making, you're always looking for something that is already tailored or flavored, but at the same time is also going to be scalable. Okay, in data products, you are not going to have the same problem as you are going to have with the ERP products, because the data is loose, so they can scale a lot more, to be completely honest. Okay, so you don't have the same challenges, but here also, in terms of the financial decision making, your best bet is going to be to find a product that already has all of this built, as opposed to going for something which will require consulting help. It will require enabling all of these data sets, creating all of these insights, which is actually going to cost you a lot. Okay, so these industries are definitely going to require a lot of custom data integration work, and that's why Snowflake makes sense for these industries. Then they have some more commentary here. Each of these brings together Snowflake's platform capabilities with industry-specific partner solutions and data sets to drive business growth and deliver improved experiences and insights. And everybody's following the similar strategy. Everybody is trying to create that ERP experience. And ERP means pre-baked as much as possible. That's what ERP literally means in my head. And that's what these guys are trying to do. That's exactly what Salesforce is.
Well, to mention that they're involved in healthcare and life sciences, I would assume that this is pretty high-level secure data.
You can, so I would be careful in that statement, because this is supposed to be a platform. You are supposed to be building your own security workflows.
Okay.
So it's supposed to be a platform. The platform is going to have layers for you to be able to build the security, but not GDPR-like security. If you require GDPR-like security, then probably Palantir is going to make more sense. If you require slightly more business-to-business kind of security for the external data exchange, then this could make sense for you. Okay. If you guys don't have any other comments, I'll move to the next one. Okay, so as of January 2023, we had roughly 8,000 total customers, increasing from roughly 6,000 customers as of 2022. And obviously, 573 of them are from Forbes Global 2000. So obviously, this is a very enterprise problem. We have seen Snowflake being used with the smaller customers as well. But for the most part, the companies that are really investing in data warehouses, when they are going to have a lot of different systems, if you are going to have just one system, I don't know if you are going to include something like this in your architecture. So depending upon how complex you are going to be a $5 million shop, that's not worth it. If you're going to be a $5 billion shop, then you need to have it.
Sam, what size companies have you run up against, or have you seen this implemented on? Because I mean that what's in the deck here makes total sense to me. You start talking about smaller companies, real mid-market SMB. I don't know. Like I think it'd have to be a very special kind of use case in terms of cost justification. But I'm just curious, what have you seen in your experience with that?
Yeah, so I have seen a couple of use cases, and in most of them, I guess, companies just didn't know what they were doing, to be completely honest, okay? And the reason for that is because these initiatives were either led by IT or some business functions, because they felt that they need to build cutting edge application, and they were really misusing this. One of the reasons why companies utilize this database is because it's easier to buy, it's going to be consumption based, so you don't necessarily have a friction in your sales cycle. So you can literally start using it. And then once you prove POC, then probably somebody's going to cut the check.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why we have seen cases in mid-market companies where companies are going to be, let's say, $100 million. Okay, they were using it, but it was not the right use.
That makes total sense. I mean, I could even see a larger hospital system or something like that, 500 million, $1 billion, starting to think that they need to develop in this infrastructure and roll some things out and get a bit ahead of themselves versus really looking at on the front end from an architecture standpoint, and probably making some better long-term decisions based on what they really need access to, both from an infrastructure standpoint and a technology systems.
Yeah. So honestly speaking, hospital is a very different beast. The reason for that is even smaller hospitals might require a lot of insights and intelligence for their operational decision making that might not be available as pre-baked. So they might need to invest in this. So that's why the industries that we saw, with Snowflake, those industries are very heavy in custom development. Okay, the ERP footprint is very, very, very small. There, the only thing ERP does is really financial reporting, which in my mind is not even ERP.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So that is what we have seen. But when you look at companies like transportation, even transportation is a very complex business. It's not as easy as your, let's say, manufacturing, retail. A lot of people talk about complexity of manufacturing. Okay, but from the IT perspective, I guess, from the system perspective, these businesses could be far more complex because their data sets are going to be so unique that you don't necessarily have a standardized platform that could work for you the way it is going to work, let's say, for either manufacturers or retail.
Yeah.
Manufacturers, retailers, distributors, they probably have the easiest business model, I would say, from the IT system perspective. And some people are probably going to call me out on this, but you can find a lot of pre-baked technology that might not be possible even if you're running, let's say, a $50 million transportation company. It gets harder there.
Yeah. Interesting. Thanks for sharing.
Of course. Now we have some more insights here. Okay, so what else we have? Customers can share and provide access to each other's data and data products. So this is that data sharing element. Augment data science and machine learning algorithms with more data sets. And obviously, whenever you want to explore any data science, machine learning, scenarios, you need a lot of data. You not only need your internal data, you need external data sets as well. So whenever you are going to have those organizations, that's where you will require a lot of data. Connect global supply chains through data hubs. And again, this is a very industrial problem. Now you have a lot of pre-baked products that can provide this insight pre-baked. So I don't know if you need to build a custom, but traditionally speaking, back in the days, everybody was building all of this custom just because we just didn't have this insight pre-baked. Now you have a lot of networks, in the market. That's why products such as your E2 Open, products such as your Project 44, they are so hot because they are offering the same insight that you would be investing billions of dollars to develop this. They are able to provide that out of the box. Build data products and create monetization channels by connecting data providers and consumers. Just one minor distinction there. Last time we discussed, during Palantir, that Palantir was very, very, very explicit that they are more of a platform. They are not necessarily kind of a data company. Okay, so some companies are going to provide the data because they have developed their network, so their value prop is going to be that along with the platform they are also providing network as well as data. Okay, in the case of a Snowflake, this is slightly different. Even though they are data provider, but they are providing a platform so that other data companies can easily share their data. So obviously these guys are very platform company as well. They don't necessarily have their own data, but they are making it easier for the other data company to be able to sell their data. So they are going to be really excited about it, right? Because they are sort of selling their data through this platform. For example, let's say if you are going to have companies that are supplying any pharma-centered data or doctor-related data, okay, and that is going to be used in the commercial setting, your medical device companies are going to be super excited about it. Sometimes your hospitals are going to be excited about it, depending upon the use case for which they might be using those data sets. And by the way, I don't think we discussed this point during your Palantir or not. You are going to have structured, semi-structured, as well as unstructured data. Typically these data platforms can support all of them. And the problems that you are going to have, with your semi-structured or unstructured data, it's very, very, very different from your structured data. So most of these platforms are designed to support all of that. Okay, so time travel is a very, very interesting concept, okay, that I don't think we have heard in any other sessions that we have done so far. So here they are talking about versioning. It is very, very, very similar to what we saw with Palantir, but here they have branded it differently. So they are saying our platform keeps track of all changes happening to a table, which enables customers to query previous versions based on their preferences. Now, technically speaking, what this is really a version control. Back in the days, you didn't really have version control, on data applications. You may have had version control on code, but doing this on data is a nightmare, and which is a requirement. So now all of that, whatever was available in the code world, now that is coming to your data world as well. So there's nothing new here as such, but obviously it's a very interesting concept. Dave, comment?
The only thing I was going to say, it goes with this and the next kind of statement is, another case for why the consumption-based pricing model. I mean, back to your question, Andy, this to me is kind of, this is the exact reason. All of that underlying data and structure and computing power to be able to offer things like this is the exact reason that they have to go with this consumption-based pricing, because the more flexibility and things that you want to be able to do with that, you've got to be able to have the firepower to be able to do that. The only way to do it is through an additional cost structure.
Yeah, and Dave, just to piggyback on that, I guess the whole idea of consumption based model in my mind is very self-serving. Because to be completely honest, it's if I were selling this, I would have this because my life is going to be so easy.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's a hell. It's a real hell for the customers, because now they are going to be doing all the heavy lifting, the translation.
Yeah, well, and you know how inefficient that can be. So again, it is very one-sided. It's something you really have to understand and have a handle on, because again, it's you can make one decision thinking, oh yeah, it's back to the I think we've used the example of the real time data, right?
Yeah.
Well, do you really need real time?
Exactly. Exactly. Great points, guys. Okay, so I'll keep going here. So this enables a variety of customer use cases, such as making copies of production data for data scientists, creating custom snapshots in real time. That's a big deal, guys. This was not possible before. That's what came along with Snowflake. That's a big deal. Or testing data pipelines. Okay. We currently only offer our platform on the public clouds provided by AWS, Azure, or GCP, which are also some of our primary competitors. They all have either these capabilities or similar capabilities, so they are competing for this revenue as well. Businesses run on the AWS public cloud. AWS is probably their major cloud provider. There is a risk that one or more of these public cloud providers could use its respective control of its public clouds to embed innovations or privileged interoperating capabilities in competing products, bundle competing products, provide us unfavorable pricing, leverage its public cloud customer relationships to exclude us from opportunities, and treat us and our customer differently with respect to the terms and conditions or regulatory requirements, then it would treat it similarly situated customers. Again, they are talking about politics, I guess, here. That, when you are sitting on your competitor's platform, anything could happen. So that's a real risk for these guys. But as such, I mean, Snowflake is a very credible platform. And obviously, even AWS is going to say that, we all are, Snowflake is probably going to be one of the largest customers for AWS. So they care for Snowflake more than they are going to care for the smaller customers.
Sam, do you remember? I don't remember if the Palantir had a similar call out in terms of if it was running some portion on AWS. Do you recall if that was in the deck anywhere?
I think if I remember from Andy's comments, there was a conversation related to it being cloud agnostic. And when they say,
right. Yes,
right, cloud agnostic, even these guys are going to be cloud agnostic. The whole notion of cloud agnostic is very, very, very common, because when you are going to pay for the infrastructure, you definitely want to treat them as more of the either your ISP, which is going to be your internet service provider, or the electricity provider. That's how the technical community sees the infrastructure providers to be. Okay, so they really want to shop around. Yeah, so they all have the cloud agnostic approach to reduce risk for them as well as for their customer. So we have one of the comments here from PJ. So PJ is saying, would Snowflake be a good option to bring together ERP and equipment, second or millisecond time series data? Okay, data. If not, what will be the best platform for this be? So you are bringing together your ERP as well as equipment data. That's the right use case for Snowflake platform. If you were shoving this equipment data inside your ERP, that's probably a terrible idea. Okay. So this is the right use case because ERP systems are really designed only for structured data. You can shove it in whatever you want. Nobody stops you. Okay. But it's really designed for structured data. It's really good at structured data. When you get into structured and unstructured, this is where the real value is of a Snowflake, or if you are going to utilize something like Palantir, they are going to be great options as well. So this is a great use case for Snowflake. Thank you so much for asking. Do you guys have anything to add there by any chance? Okay.
No.
All right, I'll keep moving. All right. So here we have some of the case studies. So in this particular case study, this is coming from Sanofi. Obviously, Sanofi is one of the largest pharma company, creating a reactive web application built on Snowflake for medical professionals to analyze real world clinical data for accessing therapy benefits or risks. Now, this is a very, very, very custom application for data. Okay. So even though they are calling reactive, the whole idea of here is you are building this on React platform, which is very, very, very popular in the web development community. Okay. So if you are using this for only data application, this is the right use case. But if you were using this for slightly more transactional application, for example, let's say if you're trying to recreate your ERP or WMS, that's a terrible idea. Even though if application is going to be as reactive, as cool as this, it would not make sense. So if you are trying to replicate something like what you would do inside your Tableau, okay, even if Tableau obviously is going to be very dummy, it's not going to have all of those data science, AI, ML capabilities, but even the output of AI is going to be some sort of dashboard. So when you are using this for data application, then it could be great. Or you are using these insights in your operational workflows, then it might make sense. So this is a great use case for Snowflake. But again, read between the lines when you review these. So here they are saying enterprise-wide data processing platform aimed at assisting the medical community in their analytical needs. Guys, pay attention to the keywords. When you say analytical needs, that means your data application. When you say operational needs, transactional needs, then we are getting into slightly more ERP-centric world. Particularly in the context of drug discovery, the project focuses on creating an intuitive web application for medical professionals to input query filters related to diseases, drugs, or procedures. Great application. Again, this is a data application. And identify patient cohorts meeting specific criteria to faster analyze real world clinical data for assessing therapy benefits or risks. The web application processes billions of records, guys. Okay, so obviously this is going to be a real patient data, and that could get very thick. You have these data sets available in the market. That's where the real power is of Snowflake, of records to generate the key analytical insights a user is interested in exploring. Previous data architecture, and again they are using keywords data architecture. Data architecture is the right word, keyword. Okay, data architecture, application architecture, these two are two completely different concepts. So when you talk about data architecture, that's where your Snowflake fits in. Data architecture relied on managed Spark engine, which is a very your data science centric technology that they are using as their computation layer. Obviously they were doing a lot of things custom. Now they don't need to do all of this because Snowflake is able to do all that heavy lifting for them. The data team faced several challenges with Spark's manual deployment and maintenance, resource scalability issues, frequent pipeline failures due to limited computational resources, concurrency problems during peak usage, and data movement complexities between multiple platforms. One of the points that we have not discussed so far related to Snowflake is Snowflake is delivered more in the SaaS setting, meaning you don't have to worry about infrastructure. Okay, the only thing you are worrying about is really the business logic that you need to simply map your data, do whatever you are doing more from the ETL perspective. That is the only thing you need to worry about. Everything else is taken care by Snowflake. That's why it is going to be so expensive. But if you are using something custom like Spark that they have mentioned, obviously that's going to require a lot more heavy lifting from your perspective. So that's why they had redesigned the whole analytical engine, and seems like it's been really successful for them. So again, great use case for this. Okay, some more case studies here. They have for data-driven decision making across the company's 4 business areas and 20 divisions, and this is coming from ABB, guys. ABB ingests and analyzes large amount of data. So now, one thing you might be able to note is the size of the companies. These are humongous companies, all maybe Fortune 100, Fortune 1000, size companies, and they have very different needs. So here we are talking about ABB, and ABB is ingesting and analyzing large amounts of ERP and data from other business systems. ABB's technology ecosystem included 40 geographically dispersed ERPs, 100 country-based organizations, 25 different data warehouses. Can you believe this? Okay, 4,000 applications, 15 SAP business warehouse instances, and thousands of related software systems. Time-consuming data, consolidation led to analytical delays and made it difficult to achieve a cohesive view of ABB's global operations. Can you believe this? This is the kind of skill that we are talking about. Guys, you cannot put all of this inside one ERP. There's no way in
No.
hell. Okay? So this is where your enterprise architecture comes in handy when you require data integration at that scale, because you are never going to have that application integration combining all of these applications, bringing together all of those political forces that you need to align. That is never going to happen. That's why it makes sense to utilize something like this in these scenarios. Then they are talking about the real value prop of their technology: extract once, use everywhere, a strategy that simplified data consolidation and enablement. And that's a real value prop of Snowflake. We moved from nightly extracts, this is the ETL play, okay, which caused significant overhead on countless systems. And that is right as well. That's how ETL technology worked. So obviously Snowflake disrupted that to a single near real-time CDC process that replicates information to Snowflake without much overhead. And obviously they are doing the secure data collaboration with ABB's 4 business areas. Even when you are going to be sharing this internally, you probably require secure access. So that's where the play is. But again, this security is very different from what Palantir is able to do. Okay. One more case study here. In this particular case, they have 100 plus ERPs integrated into Snowflake. So
Does that mean different ERPs?
they have 100 ERPs. I mean, there are going to be companies that are going to have 100, 1,000. We saw 25 different data warehouses. So that all happens when you look at this scale. Andy, visibility into 100% direct spend and 80% indirect spend at the carrier enterprise level. Visibility into open orders, past due backlog, detailed inventory at the factory level for key factories. Visibility into global aftermarket. So one of the things that we can deduce here is this is very aftermarket centric company. Aftermarket service revenue and other key metrics by business, understanding of customer segments, historical pricing, and price optimization for certain business segments. Okay, this is coming from Carrier, which is probably a telecom company, if I remember correctly, right? Or Carrier is what?
Isn't Carrier like HVAC?
You are right, I guess. You are right.
Yeah,
Andy.
that's what I know it as well.
Yeah, they are.
They're big.
Yeah. So they are doing aftermarket for HVAC, I believe, right, Andy? That would be your take? Yeah. Yeah. So, but I mean, this is obviously massive, the same enterprise company. So Carrier turned to Snowflake. Snowflake's vision and features are setting the tone for what the rest of the platform should do. They are saying which allows for separating storage and compute while still seamlessly sharing data across virtual warehouses, allowed Carrier to support a variety of data-driven use cases while efficiently managing costs. Snowflake's native SQL. Now, this is a very interesting case study, and I'm not too sure, if they made the right decision here, to be completely honest. So I will call them out. Now, if they are real HVAC, sometimes even HVAC businesses could be very complex. Okay, but in this particular case, and again, depending upon how these ERPs are being used, sometimes you might be able to find a pre-baked SNOP platform that might be able to provide everything that they are doing, and then you don't have to invest as much in custom integration, custom development. That's a possibility for this business. Okay, so again, we don't have enough information, but this could be slightly debatable topic, which is going to be the right decision for something like this.
When it says Snowflake's, I'm sorry, Dave.
Oh, go ahead, Andy. I'll jump in.
I was going to say the last 3 words, Snowflake's native SQL. Is that saying that Snowflake has their own? Wow. Okay.
Dave?
Yeah, I was just going to add, Sam. I just looked it up to see, but Carrier is publicly traded, and their revenue in 2022 was just a touch over 20 billion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing okay.
they're doing okay. Yeah.
They're doing okay. That's why they need 100 plus ERPs.
Yeah, my guess with some of these larger companies, it's a lot of acquisitions, and the really hard part from an acquisition and integration standpoint is as you're acquiring these businesses, and it looks like they have a couple of different segments outside of HVAC, but it becomes a weighing out the options. So I could see how a play like this versus a play to roll out or consolidate ERPs across the infrastructure, you're probably looking at, just as much work, if not more, on that side versus saying, we could tap into this from some other analytics. So, but interesting. I mean, it's cool to see some of these case studies and to see the architecture behind why, and you could totally see, what this platform is intended to do.
So, Dave, the way it goes in that world is by the time you are going to be done with your ERP implementation, you are going to have 100 new ERPs because of your acquisition. So it doesn't make any sense in that scenario.
Or you've already closed on 15 more acquisitions.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's a very different problem, very different world. You could have ERP strategy, but you have to have architecture. You have to have your data architecture as well. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's
that's an interesting point too, because it kind of calls in for a lot of these businesses, what their data governance and integrity looks like, because I'm sure that they've either had to really put some effort and focus into that, because again, it's back to the garbage in, garbage out statement. So you could go through and build out all of this infrastructure and have all of the analytics that you want, but if we haven't gone through and to ensure that the data is sound and clean, we're going to be looking at not great information.
Could not agree more. Great points, Dave. So we have one more question here, and PJ saying, thank you for the answer. This is for the previous question. Just a follow-up in the example I shared above. Would it be better to bring the ERP and equipment data into a historian like Aviva, Pi, or Snowflake? Now, this is a very interesting argument, okay? So here, one of the things that I would touch, and Dave, I would love to hear your opinion, and if you have any opinion on this, obviously, please share. So when you look at historian, the whole idea of historian, the way their data model as well as the applications are designed, they are designed for slightly more unstructured data. That's how those applications are. The data itself is very different. Now, the question you are asking is, okay, shall I move my ERP data into my historian, or shall I move it to slightly more Snowflake? Okay, number one, depending upon your budget, obviously, creating a third system is never going to be, it's going to get expensive, right? That's number one. Number two is it a smart idea to put your ERP data, which is going to be your financial data, inside a system which is not necessarily designed for security? So you are going to have a lot of different concerns there. So obviously, if you're a technical guy, always, check with your CFO in your data security guidelines. Sometimes it could be wild, wild west, right? You could do whatever, but when you are dealing with financial data, you definitely need to worry about financial security as well. And this is where the right application, if you do it in the right manner, then the right use case is going to be that, okay, use something like Snowflake to bring all of your data sets at one platform, which has all of those security layers to enable the sharing. The use case for historian should be that historian should simply split the operational data, and you are getting operational data from there, you are getting financial business data from ERP, and then you are marrying them inside your Snowflake or any other data warehouse platform that you may want to use. It could be AWS, and you can simply dump this into a simple database. You don't have to use Snowflake, but you have to use some sort of third-party platform. Then sort of mixing the application concerns, it's never a good idea to bring unnecessary data to an application for which it is not really designed for.
It's so wonderful to have someone like yourself on these podcasts, Sam.
And so wonderful to have you, Andy, here. Any other comments on this, guys?
I think the only other thing I would add, Sam, I mean, I agree with all of what you said, and perhaps I would just push back and challenge that. Are we asking the right question? I'm sure PJ, has the use case, the specific use case, but my first question is, what insights are we looking to really gain from bringing the two pieces of, the two data sets together, and then let's focus on that to ultimately get to the point where we can identify how we can best execute it versus, which platform. To me, it's, again, we have very limited knowledge. So, take this with a grain of salt, but I get the sense that it is a lot like, what's the best ERP? It depends. Okay. And let's not focus on that. Let's focus on, what the business processes are, what our model is, and then we can start to identify we can start to shortlist the technology that will allow us to, from a transactional standpoint, get there. So my question, in addition to what you said, would be, let's see what insights we're really trying to gain and how is that going to help us operationalize that data, because there could be to your point, there could be a completely different solution that is much more cost effective and provides the insights that we actually need, without going through kind of additional layers.
Yeah, could not agree more. Great points, Dave. More comments, Andy or Dave. We are close to our time right now, so I don't think we can cover more. So more comments, please.
Like Dave was saying, no matter what, we're talking about, in immense data systems here. The same thing as when you're talking about ERP systems, which one's better for a specific company or a specific organization or purpose is always, it depends. You have to analyze what it is you're trying to accomplish and make sure that this product will achieve those goals.
Great point. You could not agree more. Anything else, guys? Dave?
Yeah, I think I said it last week, but I think the neatest thing to kind of forward looking, right? The neatest thing from my perspective is knowing that some of these infrastructures are being built and leveraged, and what it will ultimately give us the ability to do in the future, right? I think we can have a lot of fun conversations, but there is a very small market segment that these are intended to serve today. And I think as time goes on, that market segment will continue to grow, and it will come into the SMB market. So it's certainly things people should be paying attention to. But again, I kind of go back to, let's ask the right questions, because it's not so much what technology, what infrastructure, all of that is certainly a piece of the puzzle, but we have to understand what we're really trying to do, what insights we're really trying to pull, because at the end of the day, we're trying to operationalize that data, right? Yep. That's all we're trying to do with any of these tools that we're talking about. So how do we best do that, given our budget, given our, kind of our infrastructure and where we're trying to go with our business? So
yeah, great points, Dave. Any more comments, guys? Dave, Andy? Okay. Perfect, guys. So that's it for today. If you joined for the first time, this was part of our industry series, for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. We are going to come back with another show. On that note, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in tonight.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you very much.
I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Dave Chrysler, head over to the Chrysler.club. It's THECHRYSLER.CLUB. If you want to learn more about Andy Pratico, head over to ESSoft.com. It's ESSOFT.com. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform, or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.